All right, so today we're diving into something that you might think you already know, Noah's Ark.
Oh, yeah.
But we're going kind of deeper than just the animals marching two by two into the Ark and the flood itself.
Right.
We're really going to go beyond the flood and look at what Genesis 8 tells us about starting over,
Mm.
and really about that relationship between humanity and nature.
Yeah, it's interesting. So much emphasis is placed on the aftermath.
Yeah.
We often focus on the destruction that the flood brought about.
Right.
But Genesis 8 is very specific in laying out this blueprint for rebuilding and reevaluating our place in the world.
Yeah, and the whole thing kicks off with this very powerful phrase, God remembered Noah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times we get this image of God actively choosing to intervene
Yes.
and change the course of events.
Right.
But I'm curious, is this remembering different from how we normally think about memory?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
It's not just recalling a fact.
Right.
It's more like initiating action.
Right.
God is choosing to engage with humanity again and set a plan in motion. It's the starting point for recovery.
And the drying up of the earth isn't instantaneous.
Right.
We hear about the windows of heaven being closed, fountains of the deep being stopped. It's this very gradual process, not just this miracle all at once.
Yeah, it's a deliberate unwinding.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, true recovery does take time, both for the earth itself, but also for people to kind of process what happened.
Totally.
This gradual drying almost mirrors that.
Yeah.
The patience that's needed for real change to happen.
Yeah, and we also get a very specific location. The Ark comes to rest on the mountains of Ararat.
Yeah.
Is there any specific reason the text kind of calls out that specific place?
It definitely grounds the story.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about its significance.
Yeah.
Ararat was known in ancient times.
Right.
And placing the Ark there links the story to a real geographical location. And maybe even invites us to think about a symbolic meaning.
Then we get this very specific timeline.
Oh, yeah.
That is laid out very meticulously. 150 days of flooding the Ark, resting mountaintops becoming visible, and Noah waits another 40 days before he even opens a window to look out.
Wow.
He's incredibly patient.
He's so methodical.
Yeah.
Not rushing into anything.
Right.
He's carefully assessing the situation before taking any action. There's a lesson there, I think.
Yeah.
About acting thoughtfully and not impulsively, especially after a major upheaval.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then what I always find really fascinating is this part with the birds.
Oh, yeah.
First, Noah sends out a raven, and then he sends out a dove.
Yes.
Why two different birds? Is there any significance there?
I think the choice of birds might be symbolic.
Okay.
The raven, often seen as a scavenger,
Right.
represents this sort of cautious first step into the unknown,
Okay.
exploring. Whereas the dove, a symbol of peace and hope, really signifies the desire for return and a new beginning.
And of course, the dove is the one who comes back.
Yes.
With that, very iconic image.
That's right.
The freshly plucked olive leaf.
Yeah. What stands out to you about that detail?
I mean, it's just this image of hope.
Yeah.
It's not just any leaf. It's a fresh leaf.
Right. A sign that the land is coming back.
Right.
And is becoming habitable again.
Yeah.
A visual symbol of new beginnings after a very long period of darkness.
Yeah, so the floodwaters are receding, the land is showing signs of life.
Right.
And God tells Noah, okay, it's time to leave the Ark. But he says, and make sure to bring out all the living creatures with you.
Yes.
Why is there so much emphasis placed on that?
It's not just about surviving.
Right.
It's about repopulating the earth.
Yeah.
Ensuring that life continues in all its diversity. The focus on procreation really highlights the importance of rebuilding and thriving, not just scraping by.
And what does Noah do the moment he steps off the Ark?
I know.
He builds an altar and makes burnt offerings.
Yeah, you think he'd want to unpack and settle in?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, but this act is essential.
Yeah.
Imagine going through what Noah went through.
Right.
I mean, this is an expression of gratitude, acknowledging God's power.
Yeah.
And maybe even a way to reconnect after such a traumatic event.
So this leads directly into God establishing that covenant with Noah, promising to never again curse the ground or destroy all life.
Right.
What's the significance of this moment?
Well, it acknowledges this strong link between human actions and what happens in the natural world.
Yeah.
God recognizes that humans have the capacity for both good and evil.
Yeah.
And this covenant almost sets boundaries. It offers a path toward a harmonious future.
Right.
It's a promise, but it also feels like a warning.
Yeah, because God specifically mentions that the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth.
That's right. That's pretty direct.
It is. It really makes you think about whether this new start is unconditional or not.
Right.
There's a sense of responsibility here. Like humanity has been given a second chance.
Right.
But they need to learn from the past.
Right. So we've got this recovery process, we've got this promise, but we've also got this warning.
Yeah.
What else should we be paying attention to in this chapter? What other details might offer us a deeper understanding of the story?
Let's take a closer look at the specific elements of the covenant.
Okay.
The details there reveal something pretty profound about the relationship between humanity and the divine.
Okay. You mentioned the specifics of the covenant.
Yeah.
What's so revealing about those details?
Well, it's not just, this vague promise.
Right.
God lays out very specific, observable phenomena that will continue.
Okay.
Seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. These are not random occurrences.
Right.
They're pointing to an order.
A set of laws that govern the natural world.
So it's about establishing consistency.
Yes.
Predictability.
Predictability.
Like after all that chaos, it's like God saying, okay, here are the rules of the game going forward.
Exactly.
Okay.
The flood was this complete upheaval of the natural order.
Yeah.
So this covenant brings stability. Tells Noah and all of humanity that the world will continue in this predictable, cyclical pattern.
It's almost like a shift in how God interacts with humanity.
Yeah.
Before the flood, it was this direct intervention, punishment for wickedness. But now it's more about setting these natural laws in motion and letting things play out.
That's a very insightful observation.
Yeah.
It does suggest a change.
Okay.
Before it was direct intervention.
Right.
But now it's establishing this framework.
Yeah.
And allowing humanity to operate within it. To experience the consequences of their choices.
So free will, but with the consequences woven into the natural order.
That's a very powerful concept. And think about the consequences.
Okay.
Failed harvests, extreme weather disruptions to the balance of life.
Right.
If humans don't respect that order, they will experience the repercussions.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that brings us to the present day.
Oh, right.
We're seeing these effects of climate change, the consequences of disrupting that natural balance. It's like we're living out a modern version of that warning.
Oh, definitely parallels there.
Yeah.
The story of Noah can be seen as this allegory for our own relationship with the planet.
Yeah.
Just like the flood was a result of human actions.
Right.
Many believe that our current environmental crisis stems from our unsustainable practices.
Yeah.
And our disregard for the natural world.
So are we headed for another flood? A literal one?
Not necessarily a literal flood, but maybe a metaphorical one.
Okay.
The effects of climate change.
Right.
The rising sea levels, the extreme weather, the loss of biodiversity.
Yeah.
It could be seen as a modern-day deluge, a consequence of our choices.
That's pretty sobering.
Yeah.
But the story of Noah also offers hope.
Right.
It shows that even after a catastrophe, there's this potential for renewal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not all doom and gloom.
Okay.
Genesis 8 reminds us that even in the face of overwhelming challenges, there's always hope. It highlights the incredible resilience of nature, the power of starting over, and the possibility of forging a better relationship with the world around us.
And it emphasizes that it's not just up to God to fix things.
Yeah.
Noah doesn't just sit around waiting.
That's right.
He takes action. He rebuilds, he repopulates the earth.
He does.
There's that personal responsibility there too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just a passive tale of divine intervention.
Right.
It's a call to action, a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping a better future. Just as Noah took responsibility for rebuilding his world, we have a responsibility to address the challenges we face.
Right.
And strive for a more sustainable and just world.
And perhaps if we learn from the lessons of the past, we can avoid repeating those mistakes that led to the flood in the first place.
Right.
What else can we learn from Noah's story?
Well,
about rebuilding, about resilience?
One striking detail is Noah's immediate response after leaving the ark.
Okay.
building that altar, making those offerings.
Yeah.
It wasn't about settling in.
Right.
It was about acknowledging something bigger than himself.
You're right. I hadn't thought about it that way. It was his first priority even before unpacking.
Exactly.
What can we learn from that?
It could be a reminder that even amidst rebuilding our own lives, even amidst the chaos, taking time to acknowledge gratitude, to reconnect with something larger than ourselves, can be incredibly powerful and grounding.
Yeah. It makes you wonder how often we forget to do that in our own lives.
Right.
Right. When was the last time we paused to express gratitude for the world around us, even amidst our challenges?
It's a powerful reminder.
Yeah.
And perhaps it's not just about gratitude. It's about reorienting ourselves. After the flood, Noah needed to reestablish his place in the world.
Right.
It was a physical rebuilding, yes, but also spiritual and emotional.
And that act of building the altar really could symbolize that process of reorienting himself.
Yes.
Finding his place within this new world.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
What other aspects of Noah's story resonate with you?
Well,
what else might offer us insight into this idea of resilience and renewal?
Think about the psychological impact of what Noah and his family endured.
Yeah.
They witnessed the destruction of everything they knew.
Yeah.
That level of trauma must have been profound.
It's easy to overlook that aspect when you focus on just the physical events of the story. But the emotional and psychological recovery must have been just as challenging.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even though God makes this covenant, promising no more floods, there's still this underlying sense of fragility.
Yeah.
You know, humanity's been given this second chance, but it wasn't unconditional.
Right. There's that warning embedded within the covenant.
That's right.
That recognition of humanity's capacity for both good and evil. It makes it even more relatable, don't you think?
It does.
Because we all face that tension within ourselves.
Yeah.
That capacity for both creation and destruction.
Exactly. And perhaps that's the ultimate message of Genesis 8. It's not just a story about surviving a flood.
Right.
It's a story about the human condition.
Yeah.
Our relationship with the natural world, and this ongoing struggle to create a better future.
So much to unpack there.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what else can we learn from the details of the covenant itself?
Well, let's dive into the specifics of those natural phenomena that God outlines. They reveal a deeper understanding of the relationship between humanity and the divine.
Right.
A balance that we're still striving for today.
So you were going to tell us about those specific natural phenomena that God lays out in the covenant.
Oh, yeah.
What's so important about them?
Remember those details, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, day and night?
Right.
They're not just these random occurrences.
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
They reveal an order.
Okay.
A rhythm to the natural world.
Yeah, it's almost like a cosmic clock ticking away consistently after the flood, after all that chaos. It must have been reassuring to have that sense of predictability.
It's like a reset.
Okay.
It's a promise that the world will continue in this reliable pattern.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about how those cycles relate to human life, too.
Oh, yeah.
We experience those same rhythms. Birth and death, growth and decay. You know, times of joy, times of hardship.
Right.
So is there a connection then between those natural cycles and how we understand our own lives?
Absolutely. Think about how we talk about seasons of life.
Right.
You know, we instinctively recognize those patterns.
Yeah.
The story of Noah reinforces the idea that we're not separate from nature. We're part of that larger rhythm.
It's like we're woven into the fabric of the natural world.
Exactly.
Experiencing those same cycles of growth and renewal.
Yes, and maybe that's part of the lesson here, you know.
Okay.
Learning to live in harmony with those cycles.
Yeah.
To respect those rhythms instead of trying to control or dominate them.
Which brings us back to, you know, our responsibility for the environment. If we disrupt those natural cycles, we disrupt the balance of the whole system.
The story of Noah is this powerful reminder that we're not masters of the earth, but rather stewards.
Okay.
We have a responsibility to preserve that delicate balance.
Yeah.
Not just for ourselves, but for all living things.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into Genesis 8, what's the one thing you want our listener to walk away with? What's the most important takeaway for you?
For me, it's that profound interconnectedness of everything.
Yeah.
The story of Noah highlights how human actions impact the natural world.
Right.
And how we're all part of this larger web of life.
Yeah.
It's a call to recognize that interconnectedness, and act accordingly.
Well, this ancient story has given us a lot to think about.
It has.
Amidst the destruction and the chaos, there's this really powerful message of hope renewal.
Yes.
And really the importance of our choices.
And perhaps even more importantly, it reminds us that we have the power to choose a path of harmony, just like the rainbow that followed the storm.
Right.
There's always the potential for beauty and renewal if we work together to create it.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Of course.
We'll see you next time for a brand new exploration.
Sounds good.
Until then, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep exploring.